This week's Securicy webinar. My name is Darryl McLeod, and I am the Information Security Manager at Securicy. In last week's webinar, we covered password best practices. This week we are going to cover best practices and tips on physical security. Following the webinar, we will take a few minutes to answer any questions you may have. So let's get started. Today we'll review the following topics: threats, workspaces, policy, and best practices and tips. In order to understand why you should follow best practices when it comes to physical security, you must understand the threats. There are a number of different threat types of attack vector, or a number of different types of attack vectors that focus on physical security. There's social engineering, tailgating, dumpster diving, shoulder surfing, public Wi-Fi, and unsecured devices. Social engineering. Social engineering is a type of cybersecurity threat that involves an attacker using human interaction to obtain or compromise information about a person, an organization, or computer systems. The attacker will usually appear unassuming and respectable. Oftentimes, they will claim to be a new employee, IT repair person, or a government representative. These attackers will sometimes offer credentials to enable to support that identity. By asking basic questions or conducting some preliminary research, the attacker can piece together enough information to infiltrate an organization. If an attacker is not able to gather enough information from one source, they will contact another source from within the same organization or rely on the information from the first source to add to the attacker's credibility. Tailgating. This here is a physical attack where the attacker will impersonate, say, a new employee or delivery person. They aim to exploit areas that are behind an access control system, usually like a locked door, for example. What they will do, they'll try to follow in someone that has swiped through to gain access to any areas that are controlled by, say, a swiped key system. Dumpster diving. This type of threat involves the act of going through a company's garbage in order to obtain any information that could be useful to an attacker. The attacker is looking for anything that could provide them details about your company, including paperwork, employee information, sensitive data, discarded storage devices, or even old computers. Searching through the trash can be a great way to obtain information that can be combined with another attack like phishing or social engineering. An attacker uses information from a discarded document to put together a phishing email that looks legitimate. Many companies can be thoughtless when it comes to what information they throw out and the physical access to this information. Your physical security policy should take into consideration not only your office, cables, servers, data, and devices, but also how you dispose of data after it is used and restrict access to dumpster areas. Also, paper documents should be cross-threaded, storage media should be wiped and overwritten or physically destroyed. Shoulder surfing. This is a simple type of attack where an individual will try to see your password as you type it in. They will need to be close to you in order to see what you're typing. In order to prevent this type of attack, you need to be aware when entering passwords in public places. Never reveal passwords in front of people you do not know. Cover the keyboard when entering a password. Using a password manager is also a great way to prevent this type of attack, as most tools will autofill passwords for you. Public Wi-Fi. Modern offices have changed from remote workers to staff that like to sit and work in a local coffee shop or restaurant, and also co-working spaces. Physical security is wherever you are. If you have staff working in locations like this, are they using the shared Wi-Fi in these locations while they work? Are they opening and sending emails, attachments, data, or logging into a development environment over this public connection? If they are, this could be exploited by someone sitting in the coffee shop or using the same connection. An attacker could be sniffing all the data that's going across the local coffee shop's Wi-Fi, including emails with company data. Training your staff to install and use a VPN when working on unsafe networks is essential for security. Not only do VPNs encrypt the data, but it also allows you to work safely and securely in public. The data will be encrypted from end to end by your VPN, offering you security and keep your company data private. VPNs are not very difficult to implement, depending on your organization. You can use a VPN service that are usually quick and easy to set up, or your IT department can create their own VPN, depending on your network infrastructure. Educating your employees on the weakness of public Wi-Fi and how to use a VPN can reduce the chances of your data being viewed or stolen when on public Wi-Fi. Insecure devices. There are only a few ways that a device can be insecure. Depending on your physical working space, access to devices like servers, networks, personal devices, and backups can vary. All devices should be secured in some way. Servers and network devices should be kept in secure, locked environments where access is monitored or logged. Network cabling should be separate from power cords and should prevent electrical interference, protected by conduit, and should not be run through public spaces. While these two examples may be applicable for larger business, smaller companies and individual staff members need to secure their devices as well. Each laptop, desktop, and mobile device should be secured. This could be physical, like using a laptop lock or locking your office door, or could involve settings on your devices as well. Settings like auto-locking screens, requiring a password and login, and encrypting your hard drive will help to increase the physical security of your devices. Workspaces. Physical security largely depends on the environment you work on and work in on a daily basis. Depending on your workspace, there are certain things that you can and cannot control, and other things that may not directly affect you. Physical security in a corporate or large office will be more in depth than a small office or a co-working space. Some best practices for larger offices include servers and networking devices should be locked or should be in locked or access controlled areas. Guests should have to sign in when accessing a building. Point of entrances and exits should be controlled and or monitored. Use of ID or badges to control access. Clean desk policy to hide sensitive information. Network cabling should be run through conduit in non-public areas. You should secure all company devices, and you should cover policy with staff and train them. For smaller offices, some of the above practices will apply. However, many companies of this size will not need to have on-site servers, and the network will be much smaller. Some best practice for offices of this size include separating your public and private Wi-Fi or networks, implement a clean desk policy. You should log or ensure only invited guests are on your premises. You should secure all company devices, and you should train and educate your staff on any policies in regards to physical security. Co-working and remote workspaces provide some different challenges for physical security. For co-working spaces, your physical security is controlled by a third party, and you cannot directly control many aspects of the policy. What you can do, though, is you can use a VPN for a secure private network, keep a clean desk in order to hide any sensitive information, and secure any devices that you use. Remote workers should always use a VPN when working on a public network. This could even include the network at your home office if it is shared among the host guests. You should also keep a clean desk and secure your device. It's a great practice to have, in order to reduce any potential exposure, even at your home. Any remote staff should also be educated and trained on your company policy for physical security. If you have remote workers, having language or sections in the policy that cover them is required. While all workspaces are different, each one requires a policy to ensure it covers your physical security. Workspaces will affect the scope and the content of your policy, so they need to be considered before the policy is written. Policy. A physical security policy is needed for every organization, no matter where you work. The scope of the policy will vary depending on where you work, as a large corporate office will differ from a small office or a co-working space. If you do not set the guidelines for physical security or your company, your staff will not know to require them, and this can lead to gaps in your security. All staff members need to read and understand the physical security policy. It should outline what their roles and responsibilities are when it comes to physical security. Along with policy, your staff should be trained on best practices as well to help reinforce why the physical security policy is important. And the policy should cover who is responsible and what are their responsibilities in regards to physical security. The scope of the policy, this largely depends on where you work and what type of office you work in. What devices and equipment are covered, and it should outline what areas are secure. in your organization. Best practices. And now let's review some general best practices, including security awareness training, securing your devices, using secure areas, and securing secure cable. Awareness training. In order to implement a physical security policy, your staff will need to have training and education on their role, responsibilities, and best practices. Many companies have policies but fail to successfully implement good physical security due to a lack of awareness training. Each member of your staff needs to read and understand the policy, hold a training session that covers the physical security policy and your staff's role and responsibility. It helps to create a baseline for your staff. Subsequent training sessions on securing devices, types of attacks, and best practices will help reinforce the policy and create security-minded employees. Secure devices. Hardening your computer is a great step in augmenting your security. It'll make the physical security of your device more secure, and it will minimize the threat of data loss or hacking. Many computers are set up to log in automatically at startup. While this may not be an issue with a personal device, a company device should be set to a prompt of a login. An automatic login is left on by default. That would allow anyone who finds your computer to simply turn on and have full access to your device. Setting your display to timeout is also another great way to lessen the chance of someone accessing your devices if it's left unattended. The inactivity timeout is a configurable period of time during which a user can be inactive. After this period of time, the device is locked and will require the password to log back in. And pretty much these days, almost all computers come with a basic firewall installed in the operating system. Ensuring that the firewall is turned on will give extra protection, and you will receive alerts about any possible unauthorized inbound connections. Secure areas. Secure areas should be set up to restrict access to devices or data that should have controlled access. Depending on your organization, these areas can be a network closet, a server room, or your entire office. Controls need to be implemented to ensure access to these areas are secured and monitored. These can include the following. Assess the facility to make sure there are no unexpected entry points. No one should be able to enter without permission or prior authorization. Only give badges, keys, or entry codes to employees who are authorized to access those areas, and require visitors to sign in and out of secure areas. The log sheet must include arrival and departure times and dates as well. Secure cabling. Depending on where you work, secure cabling can mean many different things. Larger companies should use conduit and case cables to protect their critical information systems from tampering. As well, important network cables need to be covered in pathways along the wall or ceiling, and it reduces access to the cables as they are hidden. Any network endpoints like switches, routers, and firewalls should be in locked rooms with controlled access. Co-working spaces in smaller offices sometimes do not have the same control of their cabling or use Wi-Fi. In a co-working space, you should check their policy on secure cabling and their network. If the connection is a shared or public connection, you should use a VPN to secure your own connection and information. Thank you for joining this week. Now, I think we have some questions that we have here. Let's see. How often should security awareness training be conducted? Security awareness training should be conducted pretty much required every new hire. Any new employee you hire, they should go through the security awareness training basically as soon as they start. And then on an annual basis for all employees. Also, too, like in regards to if there's any new risks or any new security threats that happen to come, any larger ones, like say like ransomware from a few years back when those start to appear, you should possibly do even just a small security awareness training, even just like an email out to the company just to make them aware of these issues as they arise. And another question here, we have no local network infrastructure. All of our data is stored in the cloud. Why should we be concerned about physical security? Okay, so in regards to your data, even though it's not stored locally, you should still verify the physical security measures that are put in place by your cloud services provider. You need to do your due diligence before you actually, sign a contract or purchase these services from a cloud service provider. especially in smaller providers like, Amazon AWS and Microsoft Azure, their physical security is probably second to none. They take pride in their physical security of their data centers. But for smaller providers, double check your agreements, and even if you can, visit their data centers and just to see what security they do have in place. Okay, so that's it for this week. Thank you again, folks. I'm Daryl McLeod. I'm Information Security Manager with Securicy. So just to let you know, next week's webinar will cover the topic of third-party vendor questionnaires. Thank you.